Okay, it's 5 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, Rashina. I'm glad you were able to. And I just started the
Hi,
record, so I'm
Professor.
happy that you're here,
How are you?
Rashina. How are you today?
Good. Feeling good. Let me start my video.
Okay, terrific.
Okay,
There
there.
you are. All right. Very good. All right. So it's 5 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. There's a lot to cover, obviously, as there always is. But I'm happy that you're here. And Rashina, where are you calling in from? What
New
part of
York.
the country do you live in, or the world?
New York.
In New York. Okay. We have several. Yeah, this class has probably the most diverse locales of any that I've taught at Central Christian College. We have, you may realize, we have a student who's in Alaska. We have a student who's also in France, I believe in Paris, at least in France. And I am here in sunny South Florida. A lot of the students do come from the Midwest. I'll just show you, I'm at a library, I'll just show you kind of what I have to deal with outside, because I know there's a lot of snow. You getting a lot of snow up there?
Not yet. It's expected this weekend.
It's coming this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, this is what I have to contend with. Let me just show you.
Oh,
You
that's
see
nice.
it? It's hard, but someone has to do it.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love here. I'm originally from Kentucky, and I don't think I could take the winters anymore. I've been down here since 1965,
Oh,
long before you were born, I'm sure. But I was 5 years old when we came down here as a little boy, and it's been great. I love it. My sister's up there back in Kentucky, but I love South Florida. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get a couple more people to chime in here. You know, I'm not going to keep you very long. I never do. But I wanted to get your whoever's here. Rashina, tell me, this is not your first class at CCC, is it?
no, it's not. This is my third class. I have to take a total of 4, so one more after this.
Okay. And then you're getting a bachelor's degree, correct?
It's a non-seeking degree. It's in lining up my classes for lactation consultant.
Okay. I'm learning quite a bit about this myself. This is, before this class, I had one person in my life that was their goal to become a certified lactation specialist, I suppose. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Well, I am what it is. Go ahead. Yes, please.
Yes, I think there are about 2, 3 others in the class. We had
Oh, at least.
yeah, on the coffee talk.
Yeah. And silly me, I teach adult development or human development and child development. I have 2 kids. I thought the person who came to help my wife out was just a nurse who had some training in that. But so I'm learning a lot about this. So interesting, I guess. People have discovered Central Christian College as one of the places they can go to take the classes that they need as a non-degree seeking person to get this certification. So I commend you. I think it's fantastic. And people seem to be excited about this career change or, what have you. So obviously it's needed.
Yes.
And, so I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a natural thing, but very tough to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Babies get it right away as we're learning in the readings. They naturally know how to do it.
Okay. Good. Well, good. So, and what what's your takeaway so far from your experience with CCC?
I think it's been good. It's similar. This is the first one. I have been 10 years out of college, where I graduated with a bachelor's. So it was an adjustment for me to come back into college online. But I think it's been an overall great experience. The staff has been able, if not my professor to reach, I've been able to reach the staff. So it's been a very good experience.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that. I love teaching. I love teaching online and on campus as well for a different college. So I think it's Central Christian College. I've taught online at different places. I like CCC. Obviously, they're a smaller college. They're not an Ivy League college, and that's okay. But as far as their curriculum goes, I've been pretty impressed with it. I've looked at a lot of curriculum in my career. I'm 58 years old now, and I've been doing this a long time. But for what we're shooting for here, I'm pretty impressed with what they've done. It's my 3rd year, I guess. I'm starting my 3rd year with CCC, and I don't write the curriculum. But it's you know, this is as good as I would get it. So I think it's good. I'm happy that you're enjoying your experience.
Yeah, I felt like I've taken away a lot from each course in the matter of 6 weeks. I'm like, whoa, that was quick, but
Yeah.
okay, I got it.
Yeah. I had a professor, because I came back to school as an adult to finish up. I'd started as a, you know, typical traditional student. And one of my professors, who's actually now a colleague, said, you know, these courses they're not abbreviated, they're accelerated. So don't think it's a you know, touch-based course. You're going to get just as much here in this few weeks as you would a full semester. So good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So, you know, there's a lot to talk about in human development and child development. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is attachment. And I think this is going to be something that may not be specifically related to your ultimate goal in terms of logistics of, you know, being a lactate consultant.
This is one of the, if I'm not, I haven't read the material yet. I've just been finished up my discussions, but if I'm not assuming incorrectly, but one of the key benefits of lactation is to create that bond between the mom and the child. That is one of the reasons that moms tend to do it, because they want to seek that bond or that attachment to their child.
You are right on the money there, right on target with what you say. And it is, that's kind of a pragmatic approach, if you will, or that we can actually, you know, see and measure and feel and all those kind of things of how many times mom breastfeeds and those kind of things. But what it does emotionally, are those things that you really can't see what happens emotionally. You can see the results of it, the behaviors of it, but there is, it's a really, really important time. There was, and I'm going to get ahead of myself in the slides. I'm going to go through the slides. You know, there was a time when the wisdom out there from the neurologists and everyone, that the window for attachment was very, very short, like birth to 18 months. If it didn't happen, you know, all hope was lost. They've backed away from that to an extent, and then I think that's right. I think it's, you know, correct. However, that's a real key time. You know, that if you can do it those first 18 months, you're way better off. You know, it tends to go better. So I'll just go ahead here, just touch on a couple things here from. So this gives what it is. It's the enduring emotional bond between, you know, an animal or a person and another. Animals do have attachment too. We have that, but we see it with humans. We're going to see a little bit here some of Harlow's monkeys, who she's done a lot of experiments with, which, you know, have some ethics to do with it, because the monkeys are in some ways mistreated, and people do hate to see any animal mistreated. And that's a class on ethics. We won't get too much into that, psychological ethics and things like that. But it is absolutely essential to the survival of the infant for a number of ways. Things, you know, failure to thrive and those kind of things can come into place, or just the idea that the child, he or she, can't get along in society to the point that they just can't make it. They die. Now it's interesting, when infants are born, if you hold up two different placards, if I had my markers, I'd put up there. One just has like 2 dots and then like a line below that sort of resembles a face, and then another almost identical sort of placard with 2 dots on the bottom and like a line at the top that doesn't resemble a face. The baby's going to focus more on the placard that sort of resembles a face, and it doesn't even really resemble a face. You know, babies inherently like to do that. They like to connect with other human beings. I'm going to, I won't get into a sermon here, but I'm, as a professional and as pragmatically and as a person who is a believer in Jesus, I am absolutely adamant and positive that we were created for relationships.
Okay.
That, you know, I'll be happy to talk to anybody who disagree or whatever, but, you know, I go back to creation, and this is my, you know, religious beliefs. Before sin, you know, Adam and Eve, he made them as one. is if you go back and look at the Genesis and read some of the theologians, or I'm no theologian, but read what they talk about from any Judeo-Christian perspective, that bond was very close. As a Christian, I look at the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They are three individuals. My religious belief is so. Even though they're individuals, they are so intimate and they have such integrity, for lack of a better word, that they're sort of as one. So now things have changed since sin quite a bit, and nevertheless, we are created human beings in His image, and that, to me, that just speaks so much to the importance of how we are created for relationships. Others, they can disagree with that, but that's one of my tenets of life right there. So that's a reason that the baby does look for, and again, typically it is the mother. Sometimes it's the father. It could be the nanny in some cases, but I also do think there is a special bond between the mother and the baby. There's not a special bond between the father, but the mother and the baby the mother carried the baby. There's something to be said for that, I think, quite a bit. The mother can feed the baby, which is something that resonates with you as well. So, as you mentioned, that this breastfeeding is a big part of that, so that they have that comfort, they have that security. They're getting so much from that. They're getting nourishment. They're close to the womb still, and that really does help a baby bond and attach to the mother. Thoughts about anything I said?
I would agree. I think so. I think we are created for relationships.
Mm-hmm. I get real excited about that and start going off on that. It's a big thing for me, so I try and bridle myself when it's not exactly the main topic of the conversation. Secure attachment looks like what you think it would look like. The baby is okay, likes to be held to an extent, but not all the time. That's an insecure attachment. The baby feels he or she needs to be held and can't be put down at all. That's a little bit, that's too much. You get separation anxiety and things like that. So you got to say, okay, what's going on here? What have you, perhaps as a parent, coddle the baby too much, as I say, the toddler, if you will. The babies have to learn a little bit how to self-soothe, so they can, self-soothe. But they also have to know that when, they don't have to do that all the time, or that they're not alone. They don't have to self-soothe every time. The mother or another caregiver will be there for them. So with that, if the mom goes the way that the baby may look a little bit like, hey, where are you going? His or her eyes may follow mom, across the room. But at some point he or she, the baby's going to figure out, okay, I'm going to be okay. Mom's going to come back. Yeah. When the mother is reintroduced to the room, I'm going to just, for general, being general here, speak of the mother, then the baby wants to go to her. There are times when another way to recognize an insecure or, I'll even say dysfunctional, might be a strong word, attachment, is when mom goes away and then comes back and the baby doesn't even sort of recognize mom's in the room, or doesn't seem to impact the baby at all. And say, wow, that, the baby doesn't want to reconnect into that relationship. So what's going on here? What's caused that? And typically, obviously, babies who have a secure attachment are able to mingle and make friends and be more sociable, and they're cooperative, even with other babies when they can't even walk, much less talk. They will crawl over, and you can kind of see them looking at each other, maybe sharing toys or looking at toys, or even to an extent, fighting, for lack of a better word, for a toy. They don't know how to say, I want to borrow that, or may I look at that yet. But if they're able to sort of get over that, and maybe with some intervention, they kind of get it. And as they get older, this continues. That's kind of one of the important parts of attachment. It's kind of set, and it kind of goes on to some extent. Better general here, autopilot. So, typically when kids start school when they're 5 or 6 years old, or even 4 years old, if they're getting along and are able to, be left without crying for their mom or their dad, for like an hour if they're dropped off, and if they're able to make friends and be sociable, that's a baby who had a secure attachment from, years ago. If they get dropped off and they're crying and clinging on to their mom or their dad or whoever dropped them off, and they're, fighting the teacher, and they're not wanting to go interact with their friends, and they don't want to join story time, that didn't happen just that day. That made them have a bad day here and there, but that continues on and on. That's not just because of that environment right there. That goes back some years to the attachment. And it sounds like you got some kids there. I'm not sure if they're your children or, but I heard them before. How many you got?
I have twins. They are 2 years old. So.
Oh my goodness, that's right. I remember reading that now. 2 twins.
Yes.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic. And then I'm not sure even what's in my bio, but beyond teaching at the university level and the college level, I'm also a guidance counselor for Broward County Public Schools.
Oh wow!
And I work at an elementary school. So my students range, and we have a pre-K there for kids with developmental delays.
Okay.
So my students range in age from 3 years old up to, I think the oldest college student I had was 73 some years ago. So that's the age range of my students.
3 next month.
So I see, and I see the wide spectrum of development. And the kids who are in my pre-K program, they have been identified with special needs.
Okay.
And it's a language delay typically, so they have some other delays.
That's what my boys have. They have a speech delay.
Mm-hmm.
But now we are about a year with their therapy sessions where they are pretty much on track now.
I got a million things to say about that. First of all, I commend you because you've been doing this since they were 2.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've met a parent who was in the situation and they didn't do anything, and now the kids are 4 or 5. Now there's a big, I hate to say problem, and I don't want to victimize a parent, but it becomes, now it's very difficult for the kid because the expectations are way different.
Right.
When they're 2, this can be addressed, and I can't, again, I tell you a million things. There is so much that I can say about early intervention because by the grace of God, my guess is, my experience, and I don't know the whole situation, but that's going to be something, when they get older and start school, that's going to be like a distant memory. That's probably going to be so far behind you, they're going to be just fine and everything like that. I'm sure they'll be fine either way. But that'll be like, oh yeah, that was a long time. Listen to how articulate these kids are now, and listen to the vocabulary and everything.
Follow my pride and put that aside and focus on their needs. So
exactly.
It took
and that's sometimes
truth. I had to
mm-hmm.
get the truth, and my husband was very much he's on board with the truth. He's like, 2 people you can't lie to in life: your lawyer and the doctor. So tell the truth.
That's great news. Yeah, sometimes it is a matter. That's the reason the parent didn't take them in. Sometimes they don't know. Sometimes it's a lower SES situation. They're doing the best they can just to make sure they're able to keep their apartment. I've seen from the destitute, if you will, to I had the richest, if you will, clients I had in terms of financial riches were the guys worth $3 billion.
Right.
Forbes and all this kind of stuff. So people are people, kids are kids, and so anyway, that's a decision. You want to have a comparison, but I'm sure that's going to work out very well for you. But what I see sometimes, kind of the point I was getting at before, was sometimes a kid who has not been identified, or just let's say a quote unquote typical child, being dropped off for kindergarten. Sometimes they cry for 2 weeks. I mean, for like an hour and a half every morning because they want their mom or their dad. That's a kid who probably did not get the benefit of a secure attachment. And it doesn't mean all hope is lost. Like I said, like we used to, kind of the traditional thinking was some years ago. But it just means that, you missed the easy road there. Now we have to take a little bit harder road.
So is it a fear that the mom is not coming back, which causes them to cry? Or what is it that did not give them that secure attachment? That
when they were young, you mean?
When they were young. Okay, I understand that they cry because they are afraid that their mom is not coming back.
Mm-hmm.
but where did, early on, how did that not, what happened that they believe that?
Okay, great question. Two things I'll say about that. Sometimes, to an extent, it is because the mother, for lack of a better word, neglected their needs, or neglected. They may have left the room. Now, when they're 3 months old and you leave the room, you no longer exist to them. Their mind, that's part of the anxiety that they get, right? So part of it is that mom or that parent left for long periods of time and left them crying, and they didn't come back for a long time. They didn't, the word we use, the general word is bond. They didn't cuddle them. The tactile contact is so important to give the baby the baths, massage the baby's legs, massage the baby's arms, the back, the face, kiss, cuddle, hug. So that typically in a sort of textbook situation, to answer your question, the mother just was not affectionate.
Okay.
Just whatever. It's like a baby doll. I'll feed it, but I won't talk to the baby. I won't coo with the baby. Talking to the baby is very important. Making that eye contact. When the baby tries to make contact, to make eye contact back. Talk and those kind of things. Now, having said that, I also have to point out, we are all born with a different temperament. That's just our DNA. That's what God gave us, if you will. So let's go to, I kind of gave you the extreme with the mom who neglected and left the baby, didn't coo, and only basically fed it because had to do it. To a little bit closer to the middle. So this mom's kind of okay, and she spends some time with the baby and does give some massages, but it's not consistent. It's not as much as it's not like the appropriate amount, if you will. Some babies are just born with more resiliency, and that's not going to bother them as much. But some babies who have a different temperament, they kind of need to make sure that all hands are on deck and everything's being done right. I've got my four squares of parenting. Babies are born with a certain personality and a certain temperament. Some kids would be okay no matter what. As long as they weren't beaten or neglected or abused and things like that, the parents that's an okay parent, just not that involved. Well, that kid's a survivor. They know how to do it, right? Then you have, so that kid will be okay with a great parent or a so-so parent. Okay. Then you have those kids who are born with they're a little bit more challenging. Maybe they have autism. Maybe they have another genetic defect, if you will. Could be a number of things, right? Could be a heart murmur, could be a number of things. And then you got those parents who are on board. Most of the time that kid's going to be okay because the parents are going to be there for them, and they're going to also, as you pointed out, bring in outside resources when it's appropriate. Because I'm the mom. I'm not the speech pathologist. I'm the mom. I'm not the pediatrician. I need help from outside, right? And again, pride or whatever. So those good parents, those kids will be okay. But when you get that kid who has that temperament and perhaps has a genetic disorder, maybe has autism, and you got that parent who's just not so good, now you've got a real issue. And that child has a lot to overcome, if you will, in terms of how they get along in society. Because, by the time typically they get to school, then they're really behind the eight ball. They're really, behind the curve there, if you will. And it takes a lot, depending on what part of the country. In New York typically has better resources, social services than, say, some other countries, in the South. The Florida, my own state, not countries, but my own state, I can say does okay. But I know when my families come from New York and they tell me the services they had in New York, I was like, man, I wish we had that here. That's all I can tell you, So anyway, that's attachment. Not all of it, but you'll read more about it as it comes up. There's avoidant, ambivalent. That's kind of the things I was talking about there. There's some more notes there. I don't really get involved with that. Ainsworth is a major player. You'll read about him. And I think there's a video next week that touches on attachment. Attachment's a big deal, So I think that's one reason I love it. It gives you the different views: cognitive, behavioral. Cognitive view just means I need that because I have to, the Piaget, who we're talking about this week, object permanence. That's important because I need to know that the person's there to decide what I'm going to do. Behavioral view and psychoanalytic view are there as well. So anyway, you'll read more about that. Ask me questions in the course room. I'm not going to keep you on here much longer. I'm so happy you tuned in. I want to give you the next minute or two to ask any questions about anything, and then I'll record this and we'll be on our way. Anything come to mind? Any questions or anything?
I did want to know with our assignments, what are you looking for on the cover page to include?
I think if basically it's going to say Central Christian College of Kansas is in the top there.
Okay.
And then you're going to put down the course, human development, and then the number, and then it'll be your name, so that I know whose it is. Like if I printed it out, I know whose it is, and then my name right below that.
Okay, then.
That's it. Just it's professionalism. It's what should be done.
Okay.
And then I'm not sure. You made me think that you maybe didn't have the cover page on your assignment. That's why you asked the question, obviously, right? So that's okay. Not a big problem. Also include page numbers in the upper right-hand corner. There's a couple that didn't have that. I'm not sure if that was you or not.
And also the reference page layout. Yes, it is. You want it to be titled reference page because I think I just put reference. Excited.
References really is okay. Did I make a mention on one of your papers?
Yes.
What did I say? Did I say you didn't have a reference page?
Right, to title your reference page.
Oh, just title it. Just put references.
That's what I put. So I didn't know if you wanted.
Okay, I'll go back I'll go back and look at yours. I'm not sure what I said. But I'll tell you. So just put I can't think of it. So put references and then anything that you cited in the body of your paper. Just reference an APA, but you go back and look at the APA style as well in your resources on the website on the course homepage. Mm-hmm. On the right hand side, there's a thing that says resources.
Yes.
It has all the APA stuff there. I'll go back and look at yours, Rashina. So
okay.
See if I can do something myself.
I know that we're working towards completing our autobiography each week over the 6 weeks. Is there a need to, because I think in my first one, I may have touched on toddler age, but not as it pertains to this week's discussion. Is it necessary to go back to last week and adjust, or just stick to this week and then the final?
No. Just move forward with it. That's all. Okay. And as you bring it up, even though you didn't ask this question, each week kind of stands alone until the end.
Okay. And then you would, okay.
Yeah, then you put it all together, and it's a pretty cool assignment actually for yourself. And obviously some of those, because it goes all the way through old age and death, so some of those you're gonna have to kind of project and guess and plan for rather than reflect on.
Okay. I thought that it seemed like that's what was happening, but I just wanted to make sure if I needed to.
Exactly right on that. Mm-hmm.
Correct anything. But other than that, this week is okay. I mean, discussion 2. I'm not giving a concrete answer. I'm playing both sides.
Okay.
So that's my thought on it. But
these are really good questions, and we could go really deep into it and everything. And like last week, for the most part, people had agreement. And I agree with what the student said, but that other side of the argument kind of is, well, if we did let insurance companies look at our DNA, then, since I might say that's good because I know I come from fantastic, so my premiums will be like, a lot less. That's obviously not why insurance companies exist, though. But anyway, it's interesting. These are really tough topics. I mean, we can spend a lot of time on each one of them.
Yes, and it is tough to respond to.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, that's good. I'm excited, but the nature nurture one's going to be good. But I want to stand my ground.
Okay, very good. I'm gonna go back and look at your papers. I may have missed something, but
okay.
If something comes, I'll let you know. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Bye bye.